Okay, this is a second installation of some talks I'm trying to make and demonstrations about house painting, or it also falls under the category brush and roll painting. So that's typically how a lot of house painting is done in this area. Of course, in some areas there's a lot of spray painting in homes too. So these are going to be the objectives of my particular demonstration and talk today. I'm going to talk about the tools I use, or that are very typically used, some of the materials used, and also this is mostly about preparation and repair. This sequence of things I'm going to show. I'm going to talk about camouflage and how to hide things a little bit after repair. I'm going to talk about how and why some of the tools are selected. The span the knife makes influences whether you use it. I'll talk some about drop cloths. I'll talk some about preparing a room to be painted. I'm going to show putty adaptation that makes it more handy to use with your hands, and how to color putty. And then we're going to show some sheetrock repair as well. That's the objectives. I hope some of them are interesting to you. So let's start in on the tools. And you wouldn't think there'd be much to these repair tools, but there's quite a bit of variety, and some of them are very helpful to make the job a better job. I'll start in on the different kinds of putty knives and joint taping knives. Here are some of my largest knives. This is I think a 9-inch made by a company called Wallboard. I haven't used these a lot. I've done a little bit of sheetrock joint taping in new work, but I think there's quite a lot of exposure to that on the web, and people that are very, very experienced at demonstrating and have a lot of time doing joint taping in sheetrock. But that's what those knives look like, and they typically have a little bit of a curve to the blade that helps with their use. Here's an old, I think this is a 9-inch by, maybe this is even a 12-inch. So they come in different widths for different parts of that job. The butt joints take a little bit wider knife. Here are some smaller knives, 4 and 6-inch, 5-inch. Here's a 3-inch. Here's a really nice square-cornered new smaller one. I always have a couple of these in my sleeve of my paint pants. It's very handy to have a razor knife around. A flat blade for scraping on flat surfaces is really a necessity sometimes to help get paint off where you're trying to clean up a spot or scrape something off of tile or glass. So here's some containers. This is a metal pan that's typically used by some people who do sheetrock work. You can use a metal pan, or some guys use a hawk. It's a flat, square surface. I've used this some on different applications. Here's a container that's very handy for mixing putty up. It's just a 5-gallon bucket cut off leaving about a 4-inch height. Makes it easy to get in and out of. It's got a pretty flat surface. Very handy for that mixing. And then we've got some scrapers. This is kind of a specialty scraper for digging out grooves in paint where you've got a crack. Comes with some different kinds of blades. This is a big triangle, very sharp edges. It's in good shape. This one's getting kind of dull. Here's another one that's newer, and these can be taken on and off. Here's a couple of regular paint scrapers. They come in different widths. I think these are both by Red Devil. They're pretty old. I haven't done a lot of exterior work in a while. Here's a duster. You need to clean dust off, and it's really handy to have some rags to wipe surfaces off in repair. There'll be dust and debris. Here's a very common item that you might need. Just some containers that are disposable. So, some of the products you put in these things are they're going to adhere to the surfaces. You don't want to use a lot of time and effort to clean them up much, so you can just dispose of them. You may have a lot of different spans you want to cover in repair. So you may have a very small hole, and you would just need to put the putty in with something that's not very wide, and then you come across it, and you've managed to cover that spot. But if it's a wider spot and you try to cover it with this putty knife, say it's twice the width of this putty knife, you'll leave grooves. It'll be much harder. So if you had a bunch of those, you'd want a 3-inch knife to cover it, and it'll give you a flatter surface. And then as it goes up, you use wider knives. Pretty simple, actually. But the wider knife can be a big help in making something that you don't have to fill as much. Of course, one of the tools that we use a lot of is painter's tape. This is a tremendously nice thing to have now. For a long time in my earlier painting years, it was just a tan tape, and now this blue tape is easy to apply. It comes off. It's very useful. Occasionally you will find uses for sponges in repair, just to clean off excess stuff, maybe to do a little camouflage work where you've got to make some bumps to try to blend into the surrounding surface. Okay, let's look at some of these materials we use. One of the products that's very commonly used is called Kills. This is a stain blocker. There's another one called Bin. Those are two very similar, that'll block stains to prep a surface. A lot of times you'll have water marks coming through something, or something you've got to cover up that's going to bleed through, like a ink pen line, or some kind of mark from a crayon from a child or something, or something along those lines. One of the companies that I've seen a really nice product from is called Bahco, B-A-H-C-O. It's a Swedish company that makes some paint equipment. They make saws. Bahco 625 I saw the other day makes a tiny little triangular scraper blade. It's pretty, I mean, not tiny, but small for really small work in crevices. And then they make another nice paint scraper too. And you can see those online if you look up Bahco. Another tool, of course, is different kinds of sandpaper. Those are used all the time in repair. If you can go to a paint store and they sell individual sheets, that's really nice, because a lot of times they'll have packets like this, and it'll have 3 sheets you don't want, and then the next time you do need sandpaper that's this size, you can't find this packet. So you're gonna go buy another packet. So it's nice to go find an individual sheet if you're at a paint store. Sometimes they have that. Let's talk about some of these other putties and mixes. One of the common products these days that people like to use quite a bit is these powdered compounds, joint compounds, and they're really handy if you don't need very much of the material, and they come in different drying speeds. You know, it's just a powder that you mix with water. You can read the directions. It's pretty easy to mix up in a container. This is like I said, is an especially nice container to mix in because it's easy to get in and out of. This product is, you typically see this USG. They're the big company that make all the joint compound. They make, and like I said, this is a 90-minute drying time, a little longer. I have a 20-minute drying compound one right here. This is like about a half full leftover sheetrock joint compound. It's a really handy product to use. And then of course we have the pre-mixed joint compound, which comes in 5s and single gallons, and that's used a lot too. For smaller repairs, of course, we have putties, and I like the professional formula of this MH Ready patch is really nice. It's for spackling and patching. Here's a good painter's putty that's very similar. That's a DAP product. These both have a bit of odor, and they take a while to dry. And when they do dry, they'll shrink into whatever thing you're holding. So it'll take more than one application a lot of the time, but they dry nice and hard, and they're readily sandable and good quality. I'll show mixing some of this in another part of this video. There's another product that I've used quite a bit. This is Durham's Rock Hard Water Putty. It's a putty that dries pretty quickly, and it's very hard, and you have to be careful with it too. And you've got to read the directions on all of these. It helps a lot to read the directions. They'll help you a lot as far as what application it's going to stick to and how you need to prepare that surface, whatever surface you're working with. And this one, you might have to pre-prime the whole area you're going to patch with it. And then it will not sand, so you have to leave enough space after you do this. You might have to paint it and then putty with one of these other putties. So it's a little bit more involved, but you get a really hard, almost like a hard plastic surface underneath what you're going to finish with. Then when a lot of times you may find yourself needing to kind of bolster things, you might want to use fiberglass tape. It can be very handy for spanning gaps and stiffening up a space, and then you cover it carefully. And of course you use paper tape on sheetrock a lot of the time. Some places you might want to, they're more prone, or you're worried about cracking, you might use fiberglass tape, but a lot of times you use paper tape on sheetrock joints. Here's a product that I've used quite a bit. It doesn't take very much of it. Comes in a small box. It's called Commercial Whiting. It's a white powder that you can mix with these commercial spackling and patching compounds like this MH, you take a little bit of this, put a glob of it on a piece of cardboard, and then add this powder, and you can make a putty that's very easily handled with your hands. This is wet enough and sticky enough that you wouldn't handle it with your hands. You'd always use a knife. But after you've added this, you can make something that's very helpful to putty nail holes. So in new work, or when you've replaced something with a primed woodwork, and you have nail holes, and you're going to then add a couple of finish coats to that, you can putty with this to fill those nail holes. And it's also, after you make this with this, you can add paint colors to it, so that you can do woodwork, something like say you wanted to fill these holes, these nail holes, and they're set, but nobody ever filled them. Well, they're not noticeable, but in some woodwork, they might be noticeable. And so you can make up wood colors that match those wood surfaces and fill those holes with this type of putty after you've added the powder. If you've done painting for very long, a painter would tell you, I didn't cover much. And this video is not going to cover many repairs, but that's because there are a multitude of kinds of repairs. We're going to repair some sheetrock and show some hole puttying and repair a crack in a large wall. But there are an awful lot of kinds of damage and places you have to prep in painting. So as I find more of them, I'll try to give examples as I run into them. I'm going to talk a little bit more about one aspect of preparing to do these kinds of jobs. Paint can be damaging, and it can be quite a hassle to handle sometimes. And you got to be careful with it, or you'll paint things you didn't want to paint, like somebody's sofa, or you'll have speckles across somebody's houseplants, or you could have drops that are you're stepping on a drop cloth, and then you're walking across the floor to some other area. You didn't realize you've stepped in a drop on your drop cloth, and you're walking and spreading paint spots. So there's a lot of opportunity to make small mistakes in painting, or even large mistakes. So I didn't bring my drop cloths over to show them. People have seen drop cloths, but you do need to, and if you have the opportunity, you want to be covering as much as you can and removing as much as you can from whatever room you're working in. And in the rest of this video, you're going to see me not follow that rule. I just recently finished part of this video yesterday, and I was a little confused as to what I was going to be able to accomplish in the day. So I didn't cover the entire room and take out all the small items. I tried to work on one wall, then I was going to patch some ceiling, prep some ceiling with kills to cover some water stains, so I worked over in that area and moved my drop cloths to make sure I wasn't going to hit stuff there or make a mess. Then I finally decided I've got time to paint this ceiling. So then I would have saved me time to have started by covering the entire room, but I didn't see that as due to time constraints. So you'd end up trying to cover the area you're working in, but a lot of times if you're going to do an entire room, you want to remove all the small objects like lamps, plants, people's items that are easily moved, cover those surfaces that you can't move easily, and cover all the floor if you can. I think that's all I'm going to say mostly about drops. One thing is a lot of times it's very handy to have some plastic. And you can find plastic products, plastic sheeting that you can use to cover a TV on a wall. You'll see me do that in some of this video. And you can find it and make it out of stuff in your own home. The plastic doesn't have to be, and you can buy plastic sheeting in the paint stores too. And you don't have to throw it away because you can maybe reuse it. It doesn't take much space. It's not very heavy. So I have some that I've used for many years, just repetitively. You put it up with blue tape, and it doesn't come off. Blue tape doesn't come off of plastic very easily. So sometimes you have to slice the blue tape off so you can get a straight line again to work with. A lot of times if you're covering something that's fabric in a room, it's better to cover it with some plastic and then put a drop over it as well. Plastic may let a drip run down the side of it, and plastic may slide off, so a drop on top of plastic can be very helpful. Also, I've mentioned before, when you're painting in a room and you're prepped it and you're ready to paint, say, the ceiling and walls, maybe you've moved a sofa to the middle so you can get to the walls, or you've gotten most of the furniture out of your way so you can work around it, or maybe you're lucky to do a room that's empty. You still don't want to have your paint materials and stuff in your way. So I've always found it's very nice to make a shop area somewhere close by where you can walk on drop cloths to that spot, cover that area, and have your materials, some tools there, so that you're not bumping into a paint can or just stumbling over a scraper you've put down on the floor. Just makes the area safer. Now let me talk a minute about camouflage. A lot of the time when you've done a repair on a wall or a ceiling, say you've covered an area and you've gotten your area repaired, and then you're going to use some sandpaper and get it nice and smooth, and now you're ready to paint it. You're going to prime it with a product that's just made for priming raw compound or raw sheetrock. So you do that, but the surrounding area you're surprised that after you paint it, you see this big glossy spot, and it's very slick. And depending on the location of that, and it may not be glossy, but it's just slick. So it stands out to the eye. The reason that area is standing out is because the whole surface around it has been painted a few times, and oftentimes with a roller. So if you're on a flat wall or a ceiling, and to the eye at a distance, you don't see it, but a lot of the surfaces have what's called orange peel. The roller doesn't leave a flat surface. It leaves an orange peel surface. So if you pick up an orange and look at the peeling, it's very, very rough and dimply. It's not smooth like an apple. And so if you've got a big place that's an apple in the middle of a bunch of orange peel, it will show very easily, especially depending on what light's there. During the day it might not show sometimes, and then the doors open and the sunlight comes in, you see this big patch. So it may take a few times with a roller going over that surface to make to have that be camouflaged in with the rest of the wall. So that's just something I've seen several times. Even just a nail hole covered with a 1-inch putty knife. Say you had 3 places where you had paintings, and you cover those. Well, you'll look up there and you'll see, even though you've sanded that spot, It's now a flat, smooth spot, and all around it is orange peel surface. So you'll have to go back there and maybe take 2 or 3 swats with a roller to get that orange peel surface to blend in. That's just a little thing you may see somewhere. Sandpaper, it looks simple. You're going to use a piece of sandpaper, but there's a couple of nice things to know about sandpaper in order not to have it be wasted as much. And one of the things is you can learn how to fold it in a way that's efficacious. So I'm going to fold this full sheet in half, and I'm going to put a little cut about halfway up it, and then I'm going to fold this piece over, 1/2 of it over, fold it this way and this way. Now all the sheets, well, I didn't fold that too sweetly. It's not perfect, but you can see that none of the sheets are sandpaper against sandpaper this way. You've folded it in such a way that it's all sandpaper against the back. And then this is a good size, you know, especially for doing a small area where you've done sheetrock repair. And then another adaptation would be you could take, I'll cut this entirely in half. Another way you could fold this would be in thirds. You cut a half off and fold this in thirds. It makes a little smaller, longer sheet. And then if I fold that, I can use it. It's a little different shape, a little smaller, and it's another way to fold it. Very simple, not much to that, but it's nice to know. Another thing you can do with sandpaper is take 1/4 of a sheet, fold it in half, as very similar to the large sheet. Now go halfway with your knife. I went a little too far, but you can fold it over just like we did the large piece with a full sheet. So now you don't have sandpaper against sandpaper anywhere, and you've got a nice small piece to do a small area. And you've got 4 of them. You just, when you wear this side out, flip it up, flip another side out. So, and that way you're not sanding sandpaper at the same time you're sanding a surface. So that's just a little tip for using sandpaper. And then of course, you have different grits. This is 120, 150 is finer grit, 180 is finer than that, 220 finer as your job requires. You may be using 60 grit. It's like rubbing a gravel road on something. It's so big. But you may need that to cut some project, some rough surface down. I think that's gonna cover most of what I've got to do in front of this blackboard and most of the talking I want to do. We'll move on to something else. Okay, I'm going to show a little part that I mentioned earlier. Have this MH patching compound, and I want to show another use for it. You can just get a little piece of cardboard or some paper, and you can take a little bit of this compound it's called commercial whiting powder, and let's see if it'll mix in with this. Just add a little bit to it. Let's try that much. Oops, there was a little chunk of hardened powder. I'm just gonna mix that up a little bit. I think I've got too much powder. Yep. don't really need this much, but I'm going to add a little more since I've got too much powder. Kind of like making bread dough or something, and now I've got the start of something I can handle with my fingers and use to fill nail holes. So I'm going to move that away from this excess powder. Mix a little with my fingers. And you just work it until you've got a non-tacky but still movable putty. And you can use this to fill nail holes with your hands. A lot of times if you're working on a baseboard or a door frame that you're going to paint, and you have a lot of set nail holes or attachment points like where brads have gone in, it's easier to do that repair or that modification and the cosmetic work necessary to fill those holes on that. This is used with a primed wood that's already been primed. So typically now, when people paint, they'll prime the wood before they even have the carpenters install it. So that's getting a little close to what I want. So you get the idea. You can make up this putty, and then you can just put it in with your fingers, a little at a time, instead of trying to put it on out of the container with a putty knife. It's kind of difficult to do a very small hole with a putty knife. But with your finger, you can make a little pointed spot, put it in, push it in, and then just rub it off. And then you can let it dry and come back and just lightly sand it, and you've got a nice smooth surface. And then also, in this same scenario, you can use colored tinting used to change paint colors. Here's some burnt sienna. And I can just add that into this putty. You can look at the color charts, and you can make a colored putty out of this. So a colored putty, you could use it for doing a wood that's going to be finished with a clear or a stain, something like a polyurethane. You could fix this up. Say you had some cherry, or you can work toward. It's not too hard to work towards a color with a couple of tubes of colored tinting. So now you've got a putty that's. I may have to add. This is still pretty damp, so maybe I'll have to add some more powder. Try to make it a little more workable so you can use it with your fingers. But most anybody can play around and make a useful colored putty that you can use to fill holes in a woodworking project. It's just a bit of an experimentation, looking at a color chart and saying, "Oh, I have oak here. I need a light yellow." Or I have some wood that's more brown. I mean, I could alter this with a little raw umber. I think this is going to make it pretty dark, but let's see what that does. You know, you might have some mahogany, or some oak that's stained dark, and now I've got a darker, a little bit more brown than red. Depending on how much powder I work into it, I can make it so that it's you can use it with your fingers. And this can be stored in a plastic bag for a good long while. And then if it gets a little dry, you can just add a little bit of putty and then make it more workable again. Or you can even store it right in the can with the putty that's maybe put a little piece of plastic, and this can will keep it moist. But keep it separate from the other putty so that it doesn't color it up. And it'll stay for a good long while, several days. Good. I'm here in an apartment. We're going to do some painting here today, and as I was just talking with my cameraman, a lot of the time in painting, the preparation for painting is pretty involved. So in this situation, I want to move a lot of stuff away from this wall. We're going to work on this crack on this wall just to get ready to paint, and so I've got to move some items so we can cover up, keep from getting everything covered with dust or paint, and I want to protect the TV that's on the wall. I need to set up an area where I'll have the products I'm going to use and the tools. I was planning on maybe painting this entire ceiling. I don't know if we'll get to that, so we may not cover the entire room, but I am going to cover this side to begin with and prep this crack that's in this wall. We're going to try to fill this crack and repair it, and it's a plaster wall, so it wouldn't be like doing sheetrock, but I'm going to have to clean out the loose material and clean up that area, and then mix some putty. I'm going to fill that crack, and then we'll go and do some prep on the ceiling. But before all that, I'm going to have to cover up. So to begin preparing this job, as I said, I'm going to work on cleaning this crack and getting the loose material out of it. But before that, I want to cover this area up so that I'm not getting dust and particles all over the place. So I've got drops spread out, not very wide out into the room, but enough to catch major parts of whatever might fall. And then I've got everything moved away from the area that's small that I might bump into. Covered the TV with some plastic. I'll put a little more tape on this to make sure dust isn't coming down. I've got a trail made for myself so that I can walk to the area where I might be getting tools or mixing materials or picking materials up. This is going to be my little shop area over here in this side room. With this, I'm going to try to gently scrape out what's loose. And I've got a couple of things. You can use even a can opener with a sharp point on it. They make some really nice tools. This is to get into make a V. I'm just going to get up and kind of explore, see what this crack is going to give me. It's a long, involved crack with a lot of curves and twists. So some places you might put some fiberglass mesh tape. This one I'm going to try to fill a lot of it, I hope, with just putting putty into it. So I'll start exploring this a little bit. So this area is a bit loose. This is not solid behind this. So at this point, a person could make a radical decision and break out a lot of material here, and that would lead the job to being, a lot more time consuming. It's a judgment call on how involved you want to get on this and how much a person might want to spend to repair it. So this will be mostly a cosmetic repair. We won't be rebuilding this wall up at this area. But there is quite a bit of looseness behind some of this. You can hear it as I tap on it. But we can putty it without doing major repair. I went ahead and did some more excavation of that crack and got the full length of it, made a little groove in it. I ended up finding out that this can opener was my favorite tool as I was doing it. As I had a little more control, I was a little closer to the crack as I was moving. If we look at it now, we can see a few places opened up pretty big. I've got some places where it's almost like 3 inches and it's deep. and maybe 1.5 inches wide. I was trying to be quite careful with this, but even as careful as I was, I opened it up some, and as I mentioned before, this could be a major repair where you take out a lot of that material, but I'm just trying to do kind of a cosmetic repair here. And I'm gonna now make some putty up. It's a pretty fast drying material, and then I'm gonna cover some of the bigger spots with fiberglass mesh, and then come back again with a top coat. We'll see how that goes. I noticed I didn't quite cover enough, so I got quite a bit of debris coming down, and some powder and stuff. So where I didn't have it quite covered enough, I've gone ahead and swept up a little bit, cleaned up that powder and those chunks, so that I'm not going to be stepping on them and making more mess. In the event that I was going to do a major repair here, the whole room would have to be completely covered. We'd have to have everything down off the walls. All the bookcases in this room and the sofa would have to be covered. I'd move out more of the furniture if I could, and get really open, and I'd cover, like I said, the whole floor would be covered with a large drop cloth, and every surface that I left exposed. So I'm gonna use a joint compound that you mix, and it dries fairly quickly. This is a 20-minute. It's got 20 minutes on here. You can get 40 minutes, 90 minutes. Just gonna mix up a little to put in the bigger, heavier spots to begin with, and then maybe I'll mix up a little more, slowly make a couple of batches and fill the cracks in. But I want to start by going at those larger spots and then cover them with a little bit of mesh, like I said. They give directions on this bag for making up the whole bag at once, but that would be a bit of a challenge to mix this bag up. So I'm just gonna put a little water in, mix it up a little bit. If it gets too wet, I'll add a little more powder. So you can just hit and miss this a little bit. I brought some pre-mixed joint compound too, but it takes a lot longer to dry, especially in these deeper spots. We'll just kind of see how this goes. It's a bit of an experiment, trial and error. Put a little more water. It would be nicer if I had a flat bottom on this, because it's hard with these milk carton crevices, but I think it's going to get mixed well enough to fill the larger spots. I've got a variety of putty knives, but this 2.5, 3-inch one looks like it'll work for me well here. Just gonna put some in here. This is deep, so I'm gonna have to fill from both edges and can come back again. It's probably about as good as I can do with that, or it would start tipping out. So I'm gonna go along this whole space, fill the major ones. There's one that's pretty deep. I'm gonna fill this one down here a little bit. This is not a very elegant container, but it's all I need for the moment. Here it would be nice to have a little bit wider knife, but I'm not going to get it at the moment. Try to reach this one without moving. I'm moving some of this excess off. I don't really want to cover at this point more than just the crack I'm filling. I don't want to leave excess material around. It's just more it's more cosmetically pleasing not to have a lot of lumps. So to do less sanding, I leave less material. This is still working after 10 minutes. It's still working pretty well. So it hasn't dried too much.
Oh, wish I had. Oh, no, that baby, my light on.
So the putty is beginning to dry in my container here, which is good. We know it's active. I switched to get some of the last of it out.
I love my baby.
So that's a beginning filling that. I think I can make one more mix up. I'll wait a little bit. For some of that to dry. We'll come across it with a knife to get any lumps that are there off, and then repeat that. Do that very same process. It won't take I won't mix probably half as much of the material, and we'll see. I'll see where I'm at. See how much sanding I'd have to do. There will be some sanding required here, and there'll be quite a bit of dust. But I don't know if I'll do that today because I haven't got the whole room covered. But you can see how that process is tackled. I thought about it a minute, and I decided that before I go with putting another layer on some of these spots and mixing up another little batch, I'm going to go across it with a little water with a sponge and clean it up a little bit that way. So let's see how that works. Yeah, I like this. I like this. This will allow less sanding and make the job a lot less dirty. So I'll finish this whole crack along there like this. I mean, this wall is really quite rough, and so I believe, you know, we can get by with just filling the crack and seeing how it looks after we paint over it. Then if it needs more puttying, I could do that after painting once and hit it again with a second coat. I went ahead and, like I said, mixed up another batches and a smaller batch because we had 80% of it probably filled. So I went back, it was relatively dry, and went ahead and filled this in again and then sponged it off. And it's pretty level, and I think that's going to be, I'd be ready to paint it now with a primer and then a coat. That's still a little bit tacky or damp, but in another 2 hours it would be quite dry, and I believe we could successfully prime it then. When you're doing things and they're at a greater distance, they're not as noticeable. and this is about a 9 foot, almost a 10 foot ceiling, 9.5 feet. The amount of cosmetic work I need to do here is relative to the building and the shape the room is in. So I haven't made a slick surface there. It's not perfect. You know, you could make this into a car finish with 7 coats of paint and, you know, lacquer, but that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for kind of match the level of the room. We're going to move into a bathroom and work on a little sill now that's got a lot of loose paint on it. Just going to work a little bit to clean this windowsill off. It's near a shower in the bathroom. It's got a lot of water damage, has popped the paint off. As you can see, I've already started to work on it and get some of the debris out. I'll show you a little what I'm going to do here. I mean, it's kind of intuitive to understand if you were working on this, but you want to get the most loose paint off you can, and also clean this edge back so that there's a new place for a caulking line. You use some bathroom caulk, waterproof caulking, to fill this crack in a little while. But first you need to get this cleaned off, which I'll use this to do a lot of that. I'm going to try to cut this back area out with a knife. I'm going to, use this to pry some of this up. I'm trying to get back to raw wood so I can put a coat of primer there and kind of start this over. And this is a little bit damp and a little punky. I may use this to scrape the top of it off, but I'm trying to clean it up and get it all the surfaces where they'll accept and the paint will grab on or have a new surface. This is all kind of just a sheet kind of laying on damp wood now. As I said, I'm going to try to get as much loose stuff off as I can and open this gap up here, move this old caulk that's built up here off, try to get back to fresh wood and a new shiny spot of tile. And then I'm going to scrape and cut and try to get as much loose off here as I can with these tools I've brought. You can see this just kind of pulls off like it's a latex paint that just didn't stick well enough, or over time let go. This is an area where it's naturally hard with so much water for the paint to get good adhesion and keep it. So I'll take a few minutes and then we'll see how I did. So I did some prep on that bathroom and got ready to get it primed, that little sill. And now I'm gonna focus a little more in here to prep for painting this ceiling. I don't know if it's obvious, but there are quite a few on this end of this particular ceiling, probably the last 20% of it from here to the wall. There are quite a few areas where you've got quite a lot of yellow staining. And that yellow staining is watermarks from water that's come through and at some point. And that's, if you paint the ceiling just with a regular coat of paint, those will just come right through and not be hidden. So I'm going to have to prime that with some an alcohol-based paint called Kills, or you can use they also have water-based ones, or they have another product called Ben. So those will seal those spots up and allow me to paint with a white latex in here. But first I've got to set this all up on this end of the room just to do this little bit from here to here. So I'm going to move these plants, cover this end of the room a bit with some of the stuff I was using over here. So I shift focus out of that little bathroom where I was getting ready to prime. That's ready to prime. So I'm going to prime this area while that gets a little drier. It was a little damp from me washing it down with a damp cloth. Now this area, I've covered it. It's kind of a harem scarum cover. I've just moved the stuff to the side. I brought one large drop for the whole room and then changed my strategy here to just do areas. So instead of covering the entire room and taking everything out of the room, I've kind of moved stuff from sides to side. So now I've got this kind of covered and ready so I can prime this area. Then I'll have to decide whether I want to try to cover that primer today or not. I've got the Kills here, and I'm gonna work overhead for a little while just with a brush. It's not lots of area. Here's a big yellow spot here. There's some cracks here. I'm not gonna try to work on those cracks. They'll just have to be spanned by paint, or there'll still be cracks that'll show. This doesn't take but a few minutes, but there's a few pretty good size spots. Here's one. It's not a big enough area to get a roller out. I can cover it all with just this brush pretty quickly. I only have about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of paint in the pail, but it's a very drippy paint and tends, so I've got to touch every time I get a little paint so that I don't drip here. It's a little bit of a gamble if you're not skilled with these curtains here, because the drips can splatter a little bit. You could hit the curtains with paint, but I feel pretty confident that I won't. Otherwise, I would have to take them down, especially if they were fancy, expensive curtains. This particular paint, this is an oil base, I believe, if I remember, and it smells like an oil base to me right now. It leaves quite a sheen, so it's a gloss finish, which is part of the reason it's able to stop the water stain from going through. But so in some instances, if you were making big areas of this on a very smooth surface, you'd have to paint it twice. You'd have to put a primer coat on it, let that dry, and you'd have to put another coat on to get a decent finish. I'm hoping that I might be able to just put this on and then do a one coat in this room. Whoa, almost lost it. Big drip. I got too much paint in my brush. I have to scrape it out. I've got to get down on the floor again so I can visualize where the yellow is still. All right, now I've got one more area over here in the corner, and then I'll have this paint used in here. I believe I'll have most of the stains covered. So here's a place where there's quite a little spot of paint that's loose. I'm not going to go crazy trying to fix that, but I am going to put some primer on it. Like I said, I did a little more work on this sill, and I've got it to where there's not any loose paint here anymore, and got quite a lot of the paint off. And then I did a quick sand of this, brushed it all off, so it's pretty clean. I can coat it and I'm going to try to get this front edge of this wood so I'll have a good bonding for the bathroom putty caulk that goes in here, tub and tile caulk. So I'm just going to take a little precaution after doing all that work to make sure I don't paint this edge. I didn't bring a sash tool to cut in a really small spot like this. I used pretty heavy grit paper for that, but it worked well. I think this is the last place I have to prime in here in this particular setup. That's really going to need to dry again and then be primed one more time at least. Then another coat of the latex semi-gloss or something that matches this white, and then you'd caulk, and that would look a lot better. It was pretty ugly and a lot of stuff coming off of it. I guess my plans changed in this room, and I saw that we had a couple hours left that we could still film, and so I decided to try and give this ceiling one coat of a flat white, and I got a patch made over there that was kind of ugly on the ceiling, and now I'm cutting the ceiling in. I'm just cutting to this edge right here where this little kerf is in the ceiling, and it's very helpful. That'll kind of guide my brush, so it's very quick to cut in, and it's a rough ceiling, so I don't have to cut a very fine line. And This ceiling has an interesting feature. It's a high ceiling, 9'6", and it's in a room that's very warm. And that affects the paint job. If this were not a rough ceiling, if it was a smooth ceiling, like what you encounter often, and you didn't finish it fairly quickly, it would dry so fast that it would dry very blotchy. So you have to be careful when you see me rolling it that you keep a wet edge, and I'll show that in a little bit. But the cutting in of this ceiling is pretty quick. I didn't have my favorite kind of paint pot. I only brought one and I used it for the other paint already. So I'm having to resort to something I was thinking I would be using just to mix some putty in. But I had an extra pot, so luckily I'm okay to go with it. As you can see, it's very quick to cut this in. I started about 5 minutes ago and I'm half done with the cutting in. Then I can just start with the roller. I'll have to cut the light in. Oops. Also, this ceiling dives into a wall that's white, or most close to white. So it's not going to be very noticeable if I do go past this edge. And this has begun to be pretty dry. It did sink a little bit, so we will probably coat it one more time before painting it. But I can do that and prime it later. All right, I've got a gallon of paint in my 5-gallon bucket, and as I've mentioned before, this is how I like to paint, with especially a ceiling or walls, a roller and a pole and a screen and bucket. I just touch my roller pad to the top of the paint and smooth it out on the screen, and then I'm working it across the ceiling. I've started to get enough paint in my roller that I can go a few inches. It takes a while with a really thick nap like this to start getting a smooth run. So I'm doing this in about thirds, and I'm trying to keep it, I'm trying to move fairly quickly. As I mentioned, this will dry very quickly. It's about 85 degrees outside, might even be warmer in here. And now I'm going to work to the midpoint with each cross to try to make a little broader span. So that's what this is going to look like. I've got a good start here. I think I've got about almost a quarter of the ceiling done now. I've got to cut that end in as I go, but we'll see if I bought enough paint. I'm skeptical that this is going to cover as many square feet as it says it does, but we'll see. Fairly successful day in many ways. I got to show a little bit about painting a ceiling and emphasize that the cutting in is very dependent on what edge of what wall you're meeting. You can cut down further on this wall if you're going to paint this wall, so because you can cut to wherever the white is. We got the crack pretty filled. It's certainly ready to be primed, and or we might do just a tiny bit of touch-up sanding. Seemed like with a wall this rough, you're able to just sponge the top off and it won't be noticeable once it's painted. And you can see that it's still slowly drying. It's not really dry. It says 20 minutes. It's more like on a humid day like today, even though it's quite warm, it's taken but we put some pretty deep patches in that crack. Got the bathroom sill primed up and ready to put another couple of coats of latex on that, maybe a semi-gloss, a little bit of caulking and bathroom tile putty or caulk will clean that up pretty nice. I think we're about ready to fold all this stuff up and move out. So thank you for watching. I hope this gives you some assistance in planning a project. We're getting ready to do a repair in the room next door, and we've got the place to mix set up here. Robert's an expert taper friend of mine. He's done a lot of repairs in the painting industry, and we're going to let him show us how he's going to mix some of this compound and doing a repair for us.
Okay, as you could see, we have two different mixing this here. This is compound here, ash joint compound, and what I do here is I mix it into this plastic. When you mix it into the plastic pail, it don't dry as fast. Now, if it's into this galvanized container, it will dry fast on you. That's what I learned from my experience years dealing with this. I do it from the Virgin Islands till I get to New York, and I continue on doing it. Now, what I'm going to do here, from what I see in the ceiling, I'm going to take some water, mix it into the pail. Once I mix this, I'm going to quickly go and put it into the seams. By the time I put it into the seam, it would get hard, and then I put a tape. This vinyl tape would go over it. Once I stick this vinyl tape, then I come right back and I mix it. I mix some into the. I would mix some into the pail. Make sure I got it to the way I wanted to put it on the wall. Once I get it, you can't waste time with this because it's the 20. They have the 40, which don't take time. It takes a little more time to mix because it don't dry as fast. The 20, you gotta make sure you move on it. Because it will dry on you within, it said 20, it will dry within 15 minutes on you. So you can't take time with it. I'm filling the hole here now because it's a little deep. If you don't fill the hole, what would happen to you? It would bulge out. It would
bulge.
Bulge.
Yeah.
So what I do is I fill the seam first before I put the tape. Normally you could put the tape on first and then, but when you have that seam is a little wide. So what I do here is I did this. This is what I would do. Put this on, pass the knife on it, stick it. Go here, a cut. And I would go across the seam, another seam here like this. And I do the same thing. And then here I come to the corner here.
Yeah.
Once I come in the corner, I do the same thing here until I get over here.
Yeah.
This is the knife. The knife cut it.
The knife cuts it off nice. Do you have to have paper tape in the corner?
Yes. You could put it flat, or you could put it in a corner. You could double it in the corner. Now this is not really a big thing, so it wouldn't crack because they don't tape here.
Now he's using the edge of the knife and loading this.
Use the edge of the knife
to load it a little heavy and then pass it along in so he's not coming out very wide on it. He's just pretty close.
So you go on the edge when you go in a corner.
Yeah.
You just do that.
Cross that.
And I take a piece of tape.
Oh, you want the paper tape?
Huh?
I thought you wanted the
I
paper.
was going to use the paper, but it doesn't matter with it.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
It doesn't matter. Some people do, some don't. I just put it up in the corner, like that.
Yep.
Now, what I do is I go straight up here, like this,
Yeah.
and then I pass the knife on it. Pass the knife. There we go.
Yeah. It already looks better.
No.
Are you going to put one on the wall too?
Huh?
Are you going to put a?
No.
Just on the top.
This it wouldn't mean anything because this is a thing.
It's already got tape on it, right?
Yeah.
On that edge.
So it because it's just a narrow space. That's why I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
If there was a whole wall, then yes. All right. Now this is what we do from here. We put this here, the knife here, and you start put on over the tape. You put a compound on the edge of the knife on that side, like this.
Yeah.
And then you spin the knife around, and then you come like this.
You're building a little hill in the middle over the top of the tape. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful, Robert. So you're taking a lot of the compound you're taking back off.
Yes.
Yeah.
You see what you got here?
Yeah.
That's what you got. Then here's what happened here. You see what's going on?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if you have a little bit of beard on the side,
Take it off.
clean. So what we do here is we spread it around. When we spread that like this,
Yeah, I can tell it's starting to get dry, isn't it? A little bit.
yeah, it's all right. See,
Yeah.
this is your knife.
Yeah.
Now, I'm cutting the edge over there. So I'm tilting the knife. I'm tilting the knife like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
To cut
And
over
make.
there.
Yeah. And yeah.
Smooth. Now, because I got to mix some more. This is what's going to happen here. I will just put this right here. And when I come back, I would fill it in. The knife going to be tilted on this side. You see that little thing there?
Yeah.
That was a hole.
Oh yeah, that was so it's bulging a little bit
I
there.
fill that in first. If I didn't fill that in, it could bulge more than that.
Yeah. Right here where the tape
here's the
tape
trick.
is down a little bit, and maybe the sheetrock wasn't quite
that's
flat
all
there.
right, but
yeah.
I would level that out. Tape in it. This is what they do when you tape in the nails. With compound alone, that wouldn't work because I got to wait till the next day. For now, let me mix a little more. What I do here is I double this tape and I put it in the corner. Make sure that the corner stay square. You see, like this. So when he get a compound, I'm going to put a little cross there and that, pull it square, and it'll be good to go.
Now you're going to use
The compound to put the tape on.
pre-mixed compound to put this tape.
Compound, I'm going to do this here, like that. Right across. And like this. You don't take the whole knife to spread it. You put it on a corner. You do that. Right across. Always when you do it, you clean the knife. If you don't do that, then you got a problem. I do this here on the top. That would make it level because the hole is this way. And if I do this like here, this corner will go up into the hole. So enable it not for it to go up in the hole, you do this first.
Yep.
You see?
Yep. That way you get a straight line.
A straight
Yeah,
line,
yeah.
see?
Or at least you get the line that the ceiling has.
Yeah. There you go. See that?
Beautiful. Nice, man. So Robert mixed up some more of the 20-minute compound. Getting to the last joint over here. So now he's going to take off a lot of what he put on, just with the blade angled, and he's building it up in the center. And then you got to angle it the other way for this side.
I changed this because it's a wider space.
It's a wide one.
It's the wide one. So now when I come, I'm coming.
Right down the middle. Yep.
There you go with that. You don't worry with that bubble because when I come back, that would be hard and I would scrape it down to what level it is.
Yeah.
Now I'll come back here. I want to even this in.
So he's widening it up a little bit more and building the center again.
The reason for widening it up is because you're kind of open it so it could look a little more level.
Yeah, it's going to be better.
See that bump?
Yeah, it'll be more camouflaged because the wideness and makes it more gradual.
Yeah. Next thing is that when I go over that, I'm going with clean compound. At that time, this hair would be hard enough. When I say hard enough, that's because when I cross the knife that way, you don't see a line. 10 minutes like that, and then I'm going to come with a compound until we clean this out.
Robert's going to put a finishing touches on this, that 20-minute application compound is you can see it's dry enough not to move at all when he goes across it.
Yes, this is going to be the powder coat.
This is using the premixed compound. Yeah, joint compound. Good.
I use the wide enough, see?
Yeah. Oh,
Got stuff in it.
it's got stuff in it.
Yeah, I saw that. Now you see those bubbles?
Yeah.
They come from when you leave it, if it dries too fast. Now, you see I come this way with it, right?
Yeah.
The bubbles are there. But if I come back the other way, they kill the bubbles. This polish coat is just to make it, if you want to sand it,
Yeah.
it's easier to sand than a regular mix.
Oh yes, the 20-minute dries hard and it's hard to sand. And if you cover it with this pre-mixed compound, it's a little easier to sand. A little bit easier. So when we were kind of hurrying to get the tape done, and we put a little bit of mud back into the mixed compound bucket, and there was a little bit of trash in it. So we started discovering that. So we're gonna throw that trashed mud away and get some more clean stuff and finish up with it.
Assume it was my decision to vanish in the shadow of time and run until the people can't find us. Space has
When that dries, that'll be ready to sand, Robert.
Yeah,
And the sanding will be quite easy.
quite easy. You don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
in control of my body.
Yep, a little bit of trash in that compound. And by trash, I mean compound that's already dried and then gotten introduced by accident. But it's pretty easily remedied, and Robert's got it under control.
You got everything that you wanted, and I got more worlds apart.
Well, Robert, that looks really good. I'm so glad you were able to come over and do this, because it's nice to see a pro do a good job. Thanks. That looks really nice already, and we'll be able to paint this tomorrow after we sand it a little bit, and it'll blend in really well. Beautiful, Robert. Beautiful.
See, you know, if you sand, you go right up in the corner.
Yeah.
If you see that little thing, sometimes what I do is I pad that paintable caulking,
Yeah.
a little zip inside of it, and that make it better.
Yep.
And you're good to go.
Good to go. We're done. Thanks. We've put together a video, and we're coming to a close here. We've gone through several parts of this and tried to show a few things about repair, a few things about preparation for a paint job, and some of the other video I made has some stuff about how to work with tools. I think we're beginning to cover some of painting. There's lots more as far as work with brushes and finish work on trim. Maybe we'll get to that later. I like to end these with, as I did the last one, I'd like to mention a couple of good books for all you people who like to read. Just mention a little bit about each one of them. I've got 5 books I think were good that I've read in recent years. One's called Alfie and Me by Carl Safina, and it's a really nice book about a man who has the opportunity to rescue a small owl and raise it at his home and return it to the wild, and his care and the insight he gains from the owl and his interaction with it are really enjoyable to read about. I think it's a great book. Asks a lot of questions about our relationship with our environment and our world. The next book I thought I'd mention is Milkman by Anna Burns. Milkman is about a young woman's perspective of conflict in Ireland. She's in a very dangerous area, and she's got a lot of challenges, so it's a really good book. I recommend it. Another book is Bottoms Up and the Devil's Laugh. It's a story about a woman named Reality Winner, and she's caught up in the world of not really espionage, but she divulges some information the government has that she shouldn't have, and then she's on trial, and it's a very interesting book about the data that's available on each of the citizens in the United States, and the trouble it caused her after she divulged some secret information. That's by Carrie Howley, Bottoms Up and the Devil's Laugh. I really enjoyed a book called Robert E. Lee and Me by Ty Sedgley, I think is the pronunciation. Mr. Sedgley, well, he's a I believe he was an officer at West Point. He was a professor of history, military history there, chairman of their department. And this is a very insightful look at the aftermath of the Civil War and how some of the Civil War was fought and some of those battles and really he exposes to himself and us the efforts that were made to spin that in the South, because it was very hard for many people in the South to deal with that defeat. And he just describes a lot of the negative results of that aftermath. It's a good book. Also had a really good time reading My Squirrel Days. This is some comedy by a woman named Ellie Kemper. She's an actor in television and in the movies, and My Squirrel Days is really funny. If you need a laugh, that's a good place to find one. She's got a humorous take on a lot of things. Maybe I'll finish with a kind of a little bit of vulnerability here, but I'll go ahead and read this poem anyway. It's by Derek Walcott. It's called Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. Well, that's a nice poem, hopeful poem. And I hope you have success with your painting projects and find that something in this video is helpful in your project. And I'd like to recommend some art too. I love art and music and poetry. And there's a self-portrait by a guy named Jean Miro, M-I-R-O. It was done in 1937 and 38. It's a really nice painting. And if you get a chance to see it, it's at the MoMA in New York City. Sometimes it's not up, so check before you go if you're wanting to see that. Thanks again. Hope you have a good day.